Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I know it's been a little bit since my last upload, but today I wanted to talk about some of the announcements for what we've been getting for OWCS 2025, share some of my thoughts on it, the good, the bad, whatever, and just kind of give a little rundown of the stuff that we know and some of my hopes and things for some of the information that we haven't gotten confirmed yet or we don't know information about yet. Give some of my kind of wants and things like that. So there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about today. I will try my best to make it as digestible as possible. I will try to include some timestamps as well in this one if you want to follow along certain topics and certain things like that. To make it easier to digest. And of course, I will link to everything in the description if you want to read through some of this stuff yourself. I will go through it on the screen as well so you can look at it, but at least I want to talk a bit about the format as it is right now, kind of what we see now with the system we have in place going forward. So bear with me. This one might be a rambly, text-heavy video, but we'll get through it the best way we can. So, we're going to start, of course, talking about this first update that they gave us back during the World Finals and go over some of the information here. So, here you can see the season format for 2025. As they say here, kind of highlight this just so you can kind of see what we're going through. OWCS 2025 will have 3 stages across the globe and will feature 3 international live events. The first stage will kick off with an open qualifier in January, followed by a regular season with the top 8 to 12 teams depending on region, and then a regional tournament that will qualify select teams for the international live events. And then they say we are making things more streamlined and easier to follow in 2025 by broadcasting every regular season match, which was a much-needed change. There were too many times where games just wouldn't be streamed, which is ridiculous. Making our program more consistent across NA, EMEA, and Asia. Once again, I had a lot of problems with the format this past year because you had 4 stages in North America, 2 stages in Asia, 4 stages in EMEA. So you'd have teams in EMEA playing so many games, teams in North America playing so many games, all these, 4 Swiss brackets, all this other stuff. Asia, you had 2 Swiss brackets, or however they did their qualifiers. I don't even really know. And then, if you didn't qualify for the main event, or for the regular season, in Asia, you just sat around for 6 or 7 months doing nothing until the next one rolled around. And if you didn't qualify again, well, sucks to be you. You don't get to play Overwatch ever again. Sorry, buddy. Learn to play something else. So, I like this format better. It's more open in some ways, but it's also more top-heavy, and it lets some of these top teams play more consistently. You get to see a lot of the better teams play more games, which I think is a good change in general. And I love the promotion relegation system. It keeps things fresh. It allows some of those really good teams kind of coming up to be able to have that chance to get in without feeling like it's such a closed-off circuit all the time. And it makes FACEIT Masters, which is where the NA and EMEA qualifiers are happening, feel more important, because right now, FACEIT Masters feels just like another tournament, just like a secondary thing. It is kind of Tier 2, but it is actually, unlike it was with the Overwatch League, where it was just like there's a ceiling to Tier 2, and the ceiling to Tier 2 is you play well enough to then get poached by an Overwatch League team. Now it's you can play well as a team in Tier 2 and make it to Tier 1 just by playing well. And that, I think, is a much better system than what we had back in the day. I really like that. I like the way that promotion relegation is going to work. I have a couple of questions about it with some of the things with the partner teams we'll talk about here in a second. But overall, I really like this change. It'll keep the competition as good as possible. It'll keep the good teams competing against the good teams, and it'll weed out some of those weaker teams who kind of fall off from the beginning of the season as the year progresses. Teams that don't keep up, they're going to lose their spot. And it makes it way more interesting. It makes it way more exciting. And it does away with the stupid circuit points, which I thought were done kind of terribly last year. And I'm glad we don't have to do them anymore because they made no sense. The game between Twisted Minds and SSG and the thing with Virtus where they had Twisted Minds would qualify if they put in Yubi and managed to get to 4 maps. Like, that thing was so ridiculous and so absurd. It was the moment I knew the circuit points could never come back. So this system is way better. It's taking some of the better parts of the system that was in Asia and some of the better parts of the system in North America and EMEA and combining them into a system that I really like. And you have 3 international tournaments, which is really cool to see an extra international tournament added in there. And it makes the season last like the whole year, right? Presumably it's going to be running from January through November, which is a nice long season with some breaks in between to make things feel pretty good. So overall, I like the format a lot. I'm a big fan of the way it is being set up, and I'm excited to see a more kind of consistent thing across the regions as well. It'll be easier to follow, and we'll see what happens. I'm hoping there's no information on any of the tournaments yet, any of the live events. We don't know where they're going to be yet. We don't know how many teams are going to be competing in them yet. Not even the Stage 1 tournament yet, which is kind of wild, but we'll figure it out, I guess. Hopefully before this Open qualifiers kick off next month, I hope. But I'm hoping we get an increase in the teams that compete. I'm hoping we go from 8 to 12. And one of the big reasons why I'm hoping we get an increase is because of the team partner program. And there's a lot of debate and drama and opinions about the team partner program right now, of course, because of some of the teams that were not selected, such as Energy Shock and Toronto Defiant. Obviously, big names that have been left off and seemingly in favor of potentially a much smaller organization and some other big organizations that just haven't had as much of a footprint in Overwatch. But we don't know the goings-ons behind the scenes. To be fair, we don't know all the teams that were selected or not yet, so I won't talk about the teams yet that are going to be partnered because we don't know yet, all of them. But like I said, we know Energy didn't get selected, and we know Toronto Defiant didn't get selected. But I haven't even talked about the partner program yet. What is it? What is this? So, as they say here, they're launching a pilot partner program to support up to 9 teams across NA, EMEA, and Asia. So 3 teams per region, most likely. As far as I can tell, that's the way it's working. You can see the information, majority of the information on here. The partner teams will receive a portion of the proceeds from crowd-funded in-game team packs and more, which will help them establish a stable base on which to build their competitive programs. And the fans will be able to express their fandom in and out of the game. And towards the back half of the 2025 season, you can support your favorite teams by purchasing in-game bundles, as each partner will have a team pack in-game featuring their branding and colors on skins and other items. The other items most likely being weapon charms, maybe some, what are those things called? Souvenirs. So, who knows? We don't know, like I said, exactly what the teams are. There's some rumors, like I said. Particularly North America is heavily rumored who the 3 teams are. I've heard a name for EMEA, and I've heard a name for Asia. So I don't really know yet. We don't have the full knowledge yet. So I'll talk about that more when we actually know who the partner teams are. I am excited for the partner program, but like I said, with a 9-team partner program, I do not think you can justify having an 8-team tournament anymore. I just think it doesn't make sense. It is, how do you sell the partner program to 9 different organizations if one of the catches is, by the way, there is a 100% chance that at least one of you doesn't make it to the international tournaments? Because there's only 8 spots, and there's 9 teams with partner programs. I just don't think you can sell that to partner teams to be like, yeah, there's not enough spots in the thing for all of you to make it. And I think once you move up to, say, if in later years they move up to 12 partner program teams, I think you can justify by going, there is enough spots for all of you to potentially make it, right? But it's not a guarantee. That's fine. In this case, you can't have 8 spots and 9 teams of partner program spots. I just think it doesn't make sense. So my hope is it's 12 teams, 4 from each region, and in a world where all the partner program teams advance, you're getting those 3 teams per region, and then the 4th team in each region is the best team that is kind of playing in all of these open events and open qualifiers and stuff like that. So that's what I hope the format is. I think that is the best way to do it. 12 is better. I did not like the 8 teams that we had in the past year. I thought Korea was always getting kind of the short end of the stick, and I really wanted to see more teams from Korea compete. And I wanted to see a 12-team tournament because that's what we got so used to, and especially in an ecosystem that was as open as this one was, right? The Overwatch League was running 12-team playoffs when they had 20 teams, right? OWCS is running 18 playoffs, and there's 500 teams. It was, it just didn't add up. Obviously, the money was the big reason, and that is hopefully going to be less of an issue now, especially when you have more big-name organizations that can put more money into sending their team to travel. That helps the Overwatch Esports side be able to help the other teams that have to travel more easily. So I do love the partner program. Huge thing. Like I said, it's not perfect. There's some problems with it. Some organizations that probably should be included are not being included. We don't know everything going on behind the scenes. I don't want to overreact because we don't have enough information yet, in my opinion, to make any kind of reasonable claim or anything like that. But I do think it is good to see that we are moving in a more positive direction. We might not get a perfect thing in 2025, but we're getting better. So that's really the end of this article here. There is this FACEIT blog post that was posted around the same time. It goes a little bit more in depth into the formats for the season and all of the stuff like player incentives and third-party organizers and stuff like that. Most of the stuff I'm not going to talk about in this one. You get a more simplified 2025 schedule here. The same one that was on the last one. You can kind of see the information here with all the kind of text of it. Live events, open qualifiers, which is a Swiss. Some important dates, all that kind of stuff. There's your stage 1 information. Some of the prize pool. So in NA and EMEA, it's $100,000 for each. The regular season, the playoffs, all this stuff. More in depth, like I said, this will be linked in the description if you want to read it to follow along. There's some information here about the Asia format. We'll talk about more of it here. But you can see some interesting stuff here. This kind of bottom bit here, which is the eligibility, which is very interesting. There's some more stuff here, but this is the only spot really on this article that I think has some cool juice in it. So as you can see here, Australia is now included as a resident country of the Pacific subregion. Huge dub. One of the worst parts about 2024 was that Australia was basically just fed to the wolves. This, to me, is a positive sign in the direction of 12-team playoffs. They're more willing to pay for travel because that was the story, the conversation was they didn't want Australian teams because Australia is very far away and travel from Australia is very expensive, and they didn't want to pay for flights because you got to fly all those Australian people from Australia to Dallas, Australia to Stockholm. That's a lot of traveling. And so now this gives me more hope that we're going to get a little bit more money, a little more things going around. OWCS organizations may only host one team within the OWCS ecosystem. So no more Nightmare and Citrus Nightmare and like that was that one, was that like Artemis that had like 75 teams? No more of that. Unless they're in the FACEIT League stuff, which is fine. But if you're in the OWCS ecosystem, one team, which I like because it gives organizations more of a focus on one team, and I think that helps. When you also combine that with the fact that rosters may have a maximum of 7 players now, I think you're going to see more consistent rosters, which I think is nice. You're still going to see some 5-team rosters. 7 is a little bit brutal because you have some teams that had like 8 or 9 that are going to have to make decisions on who they want to cut. But those are the kinds of things that I think will probably be more beneficial in the long run when you kind of have kind of predetermined roster sizes, which is nice. But a lot of really good stuff here. These are all pretty good changes. I think the organizations may only host one team. I don't really think it won't be noticed as much. What I like about it is that it prevents like poaching in a lot of ways, in the sense that like it will incentivize organizations to buy in more to their one team that they have, instead of doing what you would see last year. Like, do you remember last year when you had Hypnos and Ex Oblivione, and Ex Oblivione did worse than Hypnos? So then in the next stage, Hypnos became Ex Oblivione. Like, that kind of stuff won't happen as much. I guess it could, in theory, though I imagine there will be some rules. I don't know if it's been anywhere written here. I imagine there will be some rules somewhere about how many players have to stay on a team for it to be for them to not have to like play in the. I don't know exactly what's going to work, how they would decide it, but like I'd imagine like if you have a situation like M80, right, where if they get into the top 6 and they auto qualify for the next tournament and then they blow up their roster, I imagine there will be something in place for that, of how many players you have to retain on your team. It's probably like 3 or 4. I'd say probably 3, because 3 is enough to have half of a starting lineup. But we don't know for sure. So those are the kinds of things that I don't know 100%. They might be buried somewhere in some of these rules. But all in all, pretty good stuff so far. Here is a look at some of the changes for Asia. You can see here, more stages, of course, 2 to 3. In Korea, it's mostly the same format. So it's 9 teams playing in a round-robin series that will then have an LCQ and seeding matches for the 6 playoff spots. That is, I think, exactly what the format was for 2024. Japan, they're going from 8 teams to 12. The teams will be divided into 2 groups of 6, and then have the group round-robin series from there. And then the top 4 teams from each group will advance to the playoffs. So they have an 8-team playoff as opposed to a 6-team playoff in Korea. And then in Pacific, it's an 8-team round-robin series that will be held before the playoffs. And then the top 6 teams will advance to the playoffs. And Australia will be included in the Pacific region. So this is good as well. Pacific last year was it got so little love. They had OWCS Asia had 7 days of streaming matches, and Pacific had 1. Korea got 3, Japan got 3, and Pacific got like Thursday, I think it was. I think Japan was Monday through Wednesday, Korea was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Pacific got Thursday. And it was pretty bad. So I'm glad that hopefully this means they will have more screen time, more stream time If that means it's a separate broadcast, I don't fully know. We'll see, but that is a good change, and I'm glad we're seeing this kind of in place. So that's it for kind of the early, the November updates. But of course, yesterday we got the bomb, the huge information drop of the Stage 1 rules, which we can see here some of the big things. We're excited to announce that hero bans are coming to OWCS, along with some other stuff as well. So we've already touched on some of the big picture stuff for the season-long format for OWCS. So let's now focus a little more on Stage 1. Once again, like I said, we don't have information yet about where the Stage 1 international tournament's going to be, when it's going to be necessarily, how many teams are competing. All that kind of stuff is still not out yet. But this article is going to expand a lot more on what we can expect for Stage 1 in particular. Of course, hero bans being the big thing. We're going to get to hero bans in a second. I want to go through this section by section. I'm not going to talk about everything, but you can obviously pause for anything you want to talk about, because there is some interesting stuff here, and I want to talk about it. But as you can see here, details on the Stage 1 live event will be announced at a later date. Thanks. Anyway, here's some of your format stuff. We're not going to talk about everything, like I said, but there are some things that I do want to talk about that are interesting, because some of the stuff doesn't really matter, but some of the stuff is very, very interesting. I want to start with the map pool here, because the map pool for this is kind of whack. I'm not going to lie. I don't really love the way they're doing the map pool. I also think they kind of have to do it this way, so it's kind of a weird situation. But as you can see here, the following map pool will remain consistent for the duration of the Open Qualifier, Stage 1 regular season, Stage 1 playoffs, and Stage 1 promotion and relegation. And as it says here, they provide a unique map pool for each stage and live event, with the Stage 1 live event map pool announced at a later date. So you can see here, we have 3 control maps: Lijiang Tower, Nepal, and Samoa for Stage 1. Then we have Hybrid and Flashpoint combined together, with Blizzard World, Eichenwalde, and Numbani for the hybrid maps, and then a single Flashpoint map in Surabasa. And then you have Push and Clash put together, with Caliseo and Esperanza as the push maps, and Hanaoka as the Clash map. And then 3 escort maps: Dorado, Havana, and Route 66. And as you see here, note that in series, Hybrid, Flashpoint, and Push Clash will exist in the same pool of maps when selecting a mode in the map draft. Now, Push and Clash being put together makes sense to me. Both of those game modes are similar in a lot of ways. I've always kind of thought that Clash could be a better version of Push. And so the fact that they're putting them together, to me, it's kind of just like, which version of this style of gameplay do you want? Do you want the one where you're pushing a bot, or do you want the one where you're capturing the points? They kind of function the same way. They're, maps that are long and mirrored, and there's you start in the middle, and then you kind of go pushing towards the other team's spawn, or, whatever. And so them putting these together makes sense. Hybrid and Flashpoint being together is kind of strange, because Flashpoint is way more functionally similar to Control. I know Control has always historically been the mode that opens up series. It's the one that is so unique and interesting. But I kind of think I would have preferred the map pool if they paired Flashpoint with Control. And maybe instead of doing 3 Control maps, you did 2 Control maps and both Flashpoint maps. And you give teams a little bit more choice in that first map. I think that would have been interesting. And then you could end series, potentially, assuming that it would go the same way, where map 5 is a Control map. You could end on Flashpoint or Control, which I think both map types are pretty good series-ending maps. They're both very back and forth. You can't tie on either of those, which I like. Which, like, you can tie on a hybrid map. you can tie... you can technically tie an escort. It's unlikely. So I kind of wish they put Flashpoint and Control together, but it is what it is. The map pools, whatever. I obviously would have liked Kings Row, but this is a good group of maps. You don't have Gibraltar and Escort, which is like one of the big dive maps, but it doesn't really matter because we have hero bands, so you'll see things kind of playing in different ways anyway. But it's interesting. Not a lot of Overwatch 2 maps. Obviously, like Push and Clash are Overwatch 2 maps. Surabasa, the Flashpoint is Overwatch 2. But like Samoa is an Overwatch 2 map. Nepal and Lijiang are not. Blizzard World, like Valda and Numbani are all Overwatch 1 maps. Dorado, Havana, Route 66, all Overwatch 1 maps. So, just something I've noticed. Obviously, Dorado had a rework this, and Havana did too, so a little bit different, which is kind of interesting. But I know you guys don't care about that. You guys care about the hero bands. There's map selection stuff here. I don't care. Whatever. If you care about the map selection, there you go. That's how it works. Let's talk about hero bands. I know that's what people want to know about. So, as they say here, Overwatch Esports is introducing hero bands starting with the Overwatch Champions Series 2025 season during the Open Qualifier and Stage 1 competition. At this time, hero bands are only being implemented in OWCS. This means that, I guess, they are not being implemented in FACEIT Masters, though I think they might be in it. I think this is just saying that they're not being added into the live game, which no one thought they were. I don't want them in the live game. That's a conversation for another day. Maybe once Stage 1 has happened, I'll make a video talking about hero bands fully. But hero bands will be in OWCS. And as they say here, they will iterate on the hero band process throughout the 2025 season, which I like to see. And there's some things that's kind of interesting. So, here is the match draft rules that they have here. So, the way that they work is that the match draft, which contains hero bands and map selection, will be conducted by a team representative and a member of the administration before each map. And the hero bands will happen first, before the map is selected, which is good. I think. I prefer it that way, where you kind of pick a map based on what is available. And it is I think this is the same rules mostly that were in play during Esports World Cup. So, teams will ban heroes sequentially by order of priority. I think that just means one team goes first, one team goes second. Each team has one ban per map in a series. Every map will have one. An individual role cannot be banned twice in a map. So if one team bans a tank, the next team can't ban a tank, as you see here. Each team cannot ban a hero of the same role, with the first ban determining the restricted role. And an individual hero can only be banned once by each team in a series. So that means a hero can be banned twice overall in a series, once by each team. And selected hero bans apply to both teams in a map. So if one team bans Tracer and the other team bans Winston, neither team can play Winston or Tracer. There you go. And then in the first map of a series, the team with the higher seed will ban a hero first. And then the team who lost the previous map will ban a hero first in the later ones. And then in the event of a tie, all that stuff. And then you get to the map pick stuff and all that jazz. So interesting that you ban the hero first, which I like, because I don't like the idea of picking a of making your player substitutions and then making the bans. I know some people are in favor of that. I don't like that. I think teams should be able to play the roster they want based on what is at their disposal, and having all that information. So most of the rules here, this is what we're talking about. There's not a ton. Then we get a bunch of format mumbo jumbo and all that kind of stuff. Live event, we don't know yet. There is information about when stuff will start. So the stage 1 starts January 31st, but the open qualifiers are kicking off January 16th. So only a couple of weeks into the new year, we're getting our new OWCS season kicked off. Here's your eligibility stuff, which we've already talked about a lot of it. And yeah, so the big thing here, of course, is the hero bans. It is the biggest, most notable thing here. If you care about any of this other stuff and want to read it, link in the description, of course, for that. I don't want to spend too much more time in this video. It's already 31 minutes if you've watched this far. Shout out to you. It is a very interesting thing to look at. I think hero bans will be interesting. I don't love the idea of having hero bans in the esports. I understand why it's happening. I understand why we need it. And I have accepted the fact that it's probably the best thing for the esport. It's just not my favorite choice. But also, I don't want to watch amalgam mirrors all the time, so I'm not that upset by it. I didn't really watch Esports World Cup. Let me take that back. I didn't watch it at all, so I don't really have anything to base my opinions on bans off of. I know they're in Soup Cup right now. I have not been watching the Soup Cup. I think it will make for more competitive games, more competitive series, and it gives teams more options of how they can kind of try to play around certain things. I am hopeful that it's a good format, and if it's not, they'll just get rid of them in later stages. So that's why I think it's a super low risk, high reward kind of scenario, where if it's not good, then they don't do it for stage 2 or stage 3. And it's that simple. And that's one of the things I like about this format, is they're open to doing stuff for one part of the season, and then if they don't need to, if they don't like it, they get rid of it for the later parts of the season, and it's fine. So we'll see how it goes. I'm interested in seeing it. But this is obviously a huge, huge change for the future of Overwatch Esports, and it'll be interesting to see how well it does, because I think it's the biggest change this year for sure. The last thing that I wanted to just bring up is the fact that Esports World Cup Overwatch is returning in 2025. That is already now confirmed, 100%. We know for a fact it's coming back. I'm wondering if this is going to be one of the stages, probably stage 2. This might be the event for that. The schedule this year doesn't have the same level of like built-in time off like there was in 2024 for Esports World Cup. So part of me thinks that this is going to be one of the lands for stage 2 probably, which don't love, but what are you going to do? That's just the way esports are now. So lots of really cool stuff, lots of big stuff for 2025. I know this video is very, very long. If you watched this whole video, shout out to you. You rock. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on anything that I talked about today. I'm sure hero bans will be the biggest thing that people want to talk about, but any of the stuff, let me know your thoughts. Like I said, this is a deep video. There's a lot of stuff here. So whatever topic most interested you, I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. Just wanted to say, obviously, I know I've been absent from making content for a little bit. It's been a busy time of the year, but I do have a couple of videos that I am hoping to work on. I want to get a video out talking about 6v6 once the playtest is either finished or I've had a little more time with it to kind of see how the game feels. I still think with some of the new heroes in the game, it's hard to form a full opinion on 6v6 yet when you have heroes like Junker Queen and Hazard and Sojourn, who never existed in 6v6 before, and so kind of readjusting the expectations of those heroes and how they work with other heroes in 6v6 versus 5v5. So I want to do that. I also want to make maybe a Marvel Rivals video talking about my experience with the game and my feelings about it, positive, negative, stuff like that. If that's something people would want, maybe. We'll see. But those are the kinds of things that run through my brain of some content to expect maybe, kind of the next couple weeks getting into the new year as well. Just stuff that I'm running through. But that's a little treat for those of you who stuck to the end of this video. But like I said, let me know anything that you had opinions on that I talked about today. Let me know in the comments down below. I have been recording for too long, so I'm going to get out of here. If you enjoyed this video and want more like it in the future, consider liking and subscribing, as your support does help out a lot with the channel. I hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.